Researcher notes. This summer brought me many surprising discoveries. I began to notice strange things that had previously escaped my attention. When you go outdoors, you see the sky in front of you absolutely clear, as if it had just been washed to a shine. Not a single speck, not the slightest smear of clouds, not a glint of sunlight. Not even birds can be heard, and people disappear somewhere, although I live not far from the station. But when I think about where all these familiar elements of the world are, a small cloud immediately appears. The voices of birds begin to sound, and now they appear right above my head. A couple of moments later, the rumble of a train sounds, and people's voices become clearly audible. And the most important thing is that the sky begins to be covered with clouds, forming whole rows of layers that move smoothly in different directions. It feels like someone is watching my thoughts and then showing me carefully prepared three-dimensional pictures of reality. About 10 years ago, I was actively immersed in the world of esotericism, reading and listening to a huge amount of relevant literature. Sometimes I wanted to try to put the acquired knowledge into practice, but since our nature is limited by our upbringing and we often feel helpless in this world, I did not achieve any significant success. However, there was one incident that I remember particularly vividly. One day, when I was about to leave the house to pick up my online order, I decided to do a little experiment. Before leaving the apartment, I made a wish to meet a red dog on the way, just some unfamiliar dog, which I briefly described with these words. After that, I left the house and went to the order pickup point, the way to which took about 25 minutes. On the way, my thoughts were occupied with other things, and I completely forgot about my wish. When I finally reached my destination, went inside and stood in line, I suddenly noticed a large A3 ad on the wall. It read, "Looking for a red dog," and next to it hung a color photo of her. This moment made me wonder, was it a manifestation of my power of thought and materialization of desire? Or was it an accident? Could it be that I somehow knew in advance that I would see this particular poster? This question is still open to me. This incident happened to me in 2014, in the heart of Moscow, not far from the Moskva River. At the time, we were renovating our apartment, which was in a 1957 building on the top, 5th floor. It was an August morning, and my husband and I were living out of town at the time. I decided to bring to the apartment 2 large boxes of glass blocks, which are usually used to build walls. To facilitate the process of carrying the building materials, my husband mounted a simple lifting mechanism on the balcony. The load had to be lifted manually, using a rope to which a large construction basin was attached. Since I didn't want to go up and down the stairs repeatedly, I decided to load both boxes at the same time and slowly lift them. As I started pulling on the rope, I lifted the load halfway up the 2nd floor, but soon realized I had no more strength. My arms and legs began to shake, and I could neither continue lifting nor lower the boxes back down. At that moment, I made a desperate plea to the powers of heaven for help, begging them to give me enough strength to finish what I had started. Before starting the climb, I had time to look at my watch. Suddenly, I felt as if I had fallen into a dream and woke up again. I was sitting on the couch. My breathing was steady, not at all like it is after a hard physical workout. Turning around, I saw that both boxes were standing neatly beside the couch. Then I felt a powerful stream of energy flow through the room, like a gust of wind, and realized that the energy was male. I assumed it was my husband coming to help me after all. I called out to him, but there was no response. Looking around, I made sure no one was in the apartment. I looked at my hands, no rope marks, no pain, and I felt surprisingly calm. When I looked at my watch, I realized that only 15 minutes had passed. Immediately, I called my friend and shared this incredible story with her. I want to tell you a story about time and its meaning for me. 8 years ago, my beloved husband passed away. The first 2 years after this event passed as if in a fog. I mechanically performed everyday activities, sometimes ate something, talked, did household chores, but it was as if it was all automatic. I started waking up every day at exactly 4:44 a.m., no matter what time of year it was, what the weather was like, or where I was. These 2 years were very difficult, and I was not able to function fully. Thank you to my wonderful sons. They supported me not only emotionally, but also financially. 5 years passed, and I decided to renovate our house. I took out all the old furniture, invited craftsmen, and completely changed the interior. When it came to the bedroom, instead of a bed, I bought a comfortable, soft sofa. Above it, there was a beautiful panel depicting a cityscape, streets, cars, buildings. To be honest, I didn't really look at the picture at the time, but one night I woke up, and the light of the night lamp allowed me to look at the picture more closely. I saw a clock tower. I came closer, turned on the flashlight on my phone, and looked at the dial. The hands were showing 4:44. Now, I don't wake up at this time as often as I used to, but it still happens regularly. Interestingly, it is on these nights that I dream of my deceased loved ones. These dreams bring me peace and tranquility. I do not feel any fear or anxiety. It seems to me that some of those who are no longer with us are trying to let us know that they are always there for us. By the way, the number 4 plays an important role in our family. I was born on the 4th day, as was my eldest son and even my grandson. May peace, happiness, and goodness be with you. Something strange happened to me recently, and I thought I'd share the story. This is what happened to me some time ago. I came home late at night, dead tired after a long day at work. I had dinner, set my alarm clock for 6 in the morning, and went straight to bed. As soon as my head touched the pillow, I fell instantly into sleep. The night was deep when I woke up suddenly. It felt like it was about 3 or 4 in the morning. Feeling wrecked, I tossed and turned in bed, thinking that I had a long way to go to regain my strength, since I had to get up at 6 tomorrow. Finally, deciding to check the time, I got up and saw 4:15 on the clock. Well, I thought, there's still some time to sleep. I lay back down and soon fell back into a deep sleep. I dreamed of many things. Some vivid images flashed before my eyes, and finally, I felt that I was getting enough sleep. Suddenly, I thought that it must be about 8 o'clock in the morning, but for some reason, the alarm clock was silent. I rush over to look at it and see 4:36 on the screen. What is that? I can't believe my eyes. I run to the next room, check the other clock, same story. Even my cell phone confirms it. So I've only been asleep for, 15 minutes? Wow. I decided to go back to bed, hoping to continue sleeping. And strangely enough, the alarm clock rang exactly at the appointed time. This was the only time this had ever happened. Nothing like this had ever happened before or since. It would be nice to have those extra hours of rest more often. From myself, I will say that according to esoteric knowledge, during sleep our souls travel through one of the worlds of the tree Sephiroth, called Nitzak. Time in this world flows much faster than ours, about 4 times faster. In addition, this world has a much higher frequency of vibration than our physical reality. Through this world, we often get a glimpse into the future. The Sephiroth tree describes the structure of worlds exclusive to Earth. Also, during dreams, energy, roughly speaking, passes from the right hemisphere to the left hemisphere. The left hemisphere is responsible for consciousness, your personality in this life, for logic. The left hemisphere is switched on during wakefulness. The right hemisphere is switched on during sleep. It contains the experience of past lives, the consciousness of the earth. This experience got me thinking about many things related to the nature of time and consciousness. Perhaps such phenomena occur more often than we realize. It's just that we rarely pay attention to such subtle facets of reality. I was born and spent my childhood and youth in Alma-Ata, a city that was my native home until 2000. It was then that our family decided to move to St. Petersburg. But despite the change of city, the connection with Alma-Ata remained strong, thanks to my close friend who continued to live there even after we left. In 2004, I decided to go to visit her to spend a few days together and remember the past. However, while in Alma-Ata, I suddenly had an irresistible urge to return to the place where my brightest years had passed, to our old house, which held so many memories. I went there, even though my friend lived quite far from the neighborhood where I had once dwelt. My house seemed to stay where it was, but as soon as I got closer, I felt a strange unease. Everything around me had changed so drastically, as if I had entered another world. Although the outside of the house looked the same as it had always been, inside it had become completely different. As I climbed the staircases I once knew by heart, my heart clenched with an incomprehensible fear. It was as if I had crossed the threshold of a house that had never existed. Everything seemed altered, from the layout to the smallest details. I was scared because this place that I thought was my home, I didn't recognize anymore. It was as if someone had erased all traces of my existence, including our windows, which had disappeared without a trace, turning into something completely new and alien. There was a change in the yard, too, that I hadn't expected to see. The huge chestnut tree that had once adorned the center of the yard was gone without a trace, as were the 2 pine trees that my neighbors and I had planted many years ago. These trees grew up with us, symbolizing our life and friendship, but now there is not even a hint of them left. Even the saw cuts or pits that indicated their existence were missing. My whole world had turned upside down in those 4 years, and I realized I was back in a foreign city that no longer had room for my memories. The feeling of anxiety and fear was growing by the minute. I ran out of the courtyard, my whole body shaking, unable to understand how such a change could happen in such a short time. The world I knew had completely changed, leaving only vague shadows of the past. The paradigm of life had changed so radically that it seemed as if I had never existed in this house, in this yard, in this city. When I returned to St. Petersburg, I vowed to myself never to return to that neighborhood again. The fear that had settled deep inside reminded me that the past cannot be brought back, and sometimes it is better to leave it behind than to try to resurrect something that is long gone. I am now 62 years old, but one event from my childhood still stands before my eyes as vividly as if it happened yesterday. It was somewhere around 1976 to 1977. I was a teenager in those years. In the fall, I think in September or early October, my girlfriends and I were standing outside our house. The neighborhood was busy then. There was a bus stop nearby, and the time was approaching 7 p.m. People were returning from work, and the crowd at the bus stop had grown considerably. It was already dark and cool outside, but the air was still dry. The sky was clear, and the full moon was shining on it, which attracted my eye with its bright rounded shape. And then, something strange happened. I noticed that the moon began to enlarge right before my eyes. Slowly at first, then faster and faster, it inflated like a balloon. I continued to stare at it, trying to understand what was happening. Suddenly, another moon appeared next to it, the same unchanged ordinary moon. Meanwhile, the first moon continued to grow, taking up more and more space in the sky, until its light grew dim and it began to disappear. I tried to attract the attention of my friends, but they didn't notice anything unusual. Moreover, none of the people around me were paying attention to what was happening either. The expanded moon soon filled half of the sky, and then simply dissolved. What exactly I observed that evening remains a mystery to me to this day. It was so clear that it seemed unreal. For some reason, however, I was the only one who saw it. Thanks for watching. If you have your own stories about unexplained events, mysterious encounters, or strange coincidences, share them in the comments. Perhaps your experience will help others to understand this mysterious world. Subscribe to the channel, put likes, and leave your opinions. See you in the world of mysticism and the unknown.